welcome to Creative Block. We're your hosts, V
and Sean. We interview people in the creative industries about their life, work, and hobbies while we doodle jam.
We asked people on our social medias if they had specific topics they wanted us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts.
Today, we have with us no guest. I'm just kidding. We got Jeremy Polgar in the house! What's up?
I'm so glad I'm alive. I'm so glad I'm here with you, because I thought for a second something happened.
April Fool came early this year.
You know, that's my birthday, right?
Is it your birthday?
That's my birthday.
April Fool's Day?
Not
or today?
April Fool's Day.
I can't tell whether I'm being pranked right now.
Isn't it confusing?
But I know Jeremy for sure is Aries. So.
Correct. Yeah. With a little deductive reasoning and a little horoscoping.
Mm-hmm.
I also know that
practice.
Jeremy is Mercury in Gatorade.
Gatorade. Oh my god.
He's a soft moon rising.
He's a soft moon? A soft moon?
Yeah, he's a soft moon rising, and he's a high tide.
He's a high tide.
He's a high tide surfing.
I feel like high moon, high tide rising, that sounds sort of sci-fi in some kind of a way.
That's a good segue.
Have you worked on any sci-fi shows?
Yeah, I guess Space Dandy is pretty that's sci-fi.
Hey, that's a great way to like.
That's a nice one. That's a nice draw.
That's a fucking amazing one.
I mean, you're one of the few American animators that I know that has worked on an overseas production in that capacity.
It's starting to get. I mean, it's been like pretty popular the past few years.
Well, I just don't know any good animator. No, I'm just kidding. I just don't have any friends that are any good. No. I think that you probably know a lot of people in that area because you work on shows like that.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
But that is cool. That is cool that there's like a. You know, I know that a bunch of animators worked on the One Piece kind of like big climax thing. A bunch of American animators, and so that's more common now.
Yeah, it's getting pretty common. I mean, yeah, Japan needs more animators that are willing to work that way. You know, so it's tough, but yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I was sort of part of that first wave that was invited by Japan. Like, the way that happened was my friend Jamie Vickers, you know, who's friends with Masaki Yuasa, you know, he said, hey, Yuasa-san posted a thing on Facebook. He's looking for animators for Space Dandy. You have to do it. I was just like, oh man, but I always say no. And he's like, you have to do this. I said, okay. So I did it. They just asked for like just some demo reel stuff, and then there's like, okay, great, here's your start date, and then like
and then you had to
like, here's your shot, and then you had to. It was pretty simple. It was really quick vetting. Like, it was pretty crazy. And then I only did 4 shots for it, though. I only did four cuts for it.
How did you apply? Because do you speak Japanese?
Not at all. So there is this guy, and shame on me, I can't remember his name. Super amazing, nice producer. I believe, he was also friends with Jamie from the MTV era of animation, and he transplanted to Japan to work on Japanese productions, and so he did the translations.
Wow,
so nice. So you would see Yuasa's
awesome.
notes in Japanese and kanji, and then you'd get the English, like, you know, writing on top of that.
I mean, how crazy is that, seeing those notes to you?
And like, I was just one guy. Like, this was primarily a Western European American team. There was like me and one other American.
Whoa.
And then like, the rest was primarily European guys. And then, oh man, I can't remember his name, but shoot, like, I mean, they had like the one incredible animation director in Japan working on it too, for the crazy wave sequence.
that is so cool.
Yeah, that was a good experience though. I mean, I learned a lot just from doing those 4 cuts. It was great. I mean, you know, it's like, he's one of my favorite directors of all time.
Was it ever like a dream of yours to work on anime?
It was at that time until I did it, and then this is where my my anime career ended. very abruptly when they reached out again, because then there was the ping pong animated TV series.
Ooh, yeah, that one was also pretty fucking awesome.
Which was incredible, and I was really excited to work on that. But it wasn't because of just the stuff I did on Dandy, but I was doing a bunch of other things too, and I had my own project going. I forgot. There was just too much happening in my life, and I just couldn't do it. And so I had to say no to it, which was really hard to do. But so now I can't watch ping pong because I don't suffer from FOMO. I don't suffer from FOMO very much, but that one has been one little tinge of FOMO. And yeah, so I have to get over that because I know I'm missing something exceptional. I've only seen I think the first episode, and I was just like, this is amazing. I love this. Yeah. So,
to be honest, I read the manga and I loved the manga so much, and I started watching the animation, and for some reason I couldn't find a version of it where it wasn't dubbed. And so my partner and I, we were just like, we can't watch it with the English dub. That's so weird.
That's funny. Yeah. I understand the purity of that.
At the time.
I don't know if we ever talked about Project FOMO before, but I like that term. And so you said you've never really had that happen before. That was you're one that got away.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's not the biggest regret. I don't know how I could have made it work at that time, anyways. But yeah, it's just kind of just a dream that's just not there anymore.
My goal is to offer people a time to work on a project with me and create a FOMO when they turn me down, and then later have it be really good. That's my dream.
You and I are already in process, dude. I mean, you called me up to help you out with your project, and I was just like,
I have to make it so good now, though.
That's true. Yeah,
it's not gonna happen yet. Probably
That's
maybe a few years down the road, if it ever gets picked up, man, maybe I can have one sequence that makes you shed a single tear or something.
I mean, there's gonna be plenty. I mean, dude, I love your stuff, Sean. It's super funny. Man. It's crazy dynamic. It's crazy well drawn. I think you're an exceptional director.
That's really
you have to pitch us, Jeremy. You have to pitch us what is the project Sean would make that would cause you to have crazy FOMO.
Oh my god.
Wait, yeah. Would I have to be the showrunner? Would I have to be the showrunner on a reboot of your favorite childhood anime or something? What would that even be?
I think right now you would have to be okay. Here's my deal. I have obsessions, right? I go through small periods of artist obsessions and artist crushes, and they could be from any timeline, throughout human history, but primarily between the 70s and 90s, sometimes 2000s. But right now, my very present obsession is this artist Felipe Caza. And he's one of the founders of heavy metal, or how do you say, Hurlant? Help me be.
Oh, Metal Hurlant? That's the French version, but it is heavy metal in France. Yeah.
Anyways, but I was just I actually bought 4 issues of some 1982, 83 heavy metal magazines. I found it at a comic shop, and I could have got that whole box, but I didn't want to break the bank, and I don't read enough anyways for this stuff. But man, it's just right now I just love looking at that stuff and reading it, and it's just so exciting because it's, I kind of have a tendency to romanticize and intellectualize this stuff a bit, where I'm just we're doing so many incredible animations here right now in the present that are mind-blowing and breathtaking and next level. We look at The Line, or we just look at all the stuff that came out after Annecy 2024. There's all these unbelievably brilliant shorts. The Joaquin Dos Santos one, and The Line did one, and my friends at Bellalandia in Argentina, they have a beautiful project. What's it called? Electric Andes. Anyways, I'm a huge fan of all these guys, and I want to work with all of them at some point, but I don't know how to I don't know how that's ever going to pan out, because it's just, it's I'm so horrible at managing time, and I'm very selfish. So I live with a lot of FOMO. But to go back to what would create a lot of FOMO for Sean is if, like, for some reason he's just like, I'm gonna do a Kaza-centric project, and it's gonna just look like his work, and like we need you to be like kind of at like, you know, the forefront of this to like help really mold it. And then I'd be like, oh no, I can't because I have my head up my ass. Like,
oh no, I'm supervising the new Berserk anime. Oh no, the one that really does the series justice.
We're going through the whole 8-volume arc. Yeah. Oops.
That's too funny.
That's funny. Anyway, so I guess that's me. I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm a snob? Like, that's not a loaded question.
No, I don't think so.
A snob about what?
I feel like you worked on so many different styles of animation. Like, you've worked on like very cartoony stuff, like Cuphead and Thundercats Roar, and then you work on very like extremely realistic stuff, like the X-Men show that just came out.
Yeah,
so
that's a crazy one. I
think that's show. Something I've always really admired about you is sometimes there can be a divide in between the world of kind of humorous, more simplified animation and the world of action animation, and you've worked on both styles of projects, and I can tell that you just love it all. Like I mean, one of my favorite things to see actually is really simple characters animated so crazy. like because it's so fun. It's so fun to animate really, really, really simple characters doing the wildest like anime sakuga stuff. I feel
there's something really satisfying when you get like an OK K.O. character.
Right.
Who's like designed really well. Like they're basically like Sonic the Hedgehog kind of style like designs, and they it's always so fun to like try and find ways to like really push the volumes on them and make them like really dynamic,
I think that can be like something fun to talk about too. So you worked as technically your position was storyboard supervisor on OK K.O.
Yeah.
How did you approach this position? Just for our audience.
That's a fun story. Do you remember? I have a story about this. I got a little anecdote.
Go ahead. I feel because I just wanted to let the audience know, like, storyboard supervisor is kind of like this kind of like weird title that can be wildly different from a studio to another, and even from a production.
Yeah, I've never seen that a position.
OK K.O. was my FOMO, by the way.
That makes sense. Like, isn't there kind of like an arc there? Like,
I remember I was like, I knew a few people that worked on it, and I was like, who do I have to suck? What do I have to do? What do I have to do to trick my way onto this show? And I just remember that it was just always full, and people were so good, and they all worked on it, and they liked working on it, and they stayed on it. And I was like, man, like I was like, I know some people on it. Like I see the crack in the armor.
Why don't you leave?
I have to make one of them sick.
One of you must die.
Oh my god!
I'll send you the sickly tissue in the mail.
Man, I remember. I mean, so was that you when Charles passed?
Oh my god!
I'm kidding. I'm so kidding. Charles never existed to die, so don't worry. Charles
was one of my animation heroes, and it was no. But I do remember at that time I was like, I remember I was in between productions, and I was like, and I was seeing the OK K.O. stuff, and I was like, man, that looks cool. That like there's simple characters doing crazy action animation. I like how that seems like it would be fun. But yeah, it was one of those things where it's just sometimes it doesn't work out. And yeah, that was my FOMO that I was like, oh, Jeremy, you lucky dog. I don't know.
It was fun. I actually hung out there for a while. I did have a really good time on that show. Thanks for these little robots that you drew around my robot. I'm sorry I ruined it with my coloring, but man, these doodles look great, guys. These are beautiful.
Yeah, what was that like? What was that like
well-
on the FOMO show?
Was it like? Tell me about the FOMO.
Tell me about what I missed out. Tell me what I missed out on. No.
Yeah,
kidding.
I mean it was fun. I mean, man, like I had such a good time going to the first pitches were like always a riot. Like that storyboard team was so good at writing and telling jokes and drawing them. And it was so funny because, you know, Ian was so great at setting up a sandbox, you know, for all these guys, artists to jump into and just do their thing with. And he also uniquely positioned them to where, you know, he wasn't so, I mean, you know, the show meant a lot to him, but he wasn't so precious about it. So, you know, he knew how to work within that Cartoon Network, what was it, like 5-week turnaround, you know, with two board partners tackling one episode. And, you know, so that would, and he also like hired people that he knew could basically have their own show. So he found people with very distinct voices. So he basically just hired a team of directors, which I think was really smart of him. And it totally paid off. And like there was times where I was like screaming during those pitch meetings because like the punchline would be so shocking and fresh and like just slap you in the face, and it's just so unexpected. And yeah, it was a really good time. The way I got that job was pretty funny though. Like Ian was kind enough to reach out to me. Oh, I think he saw every time I got a storyboard job, it was never for storyboarding, by the way. It was just for animating, which is like such a funny cheat code. So if you just like animate pretty good, like, and you take like, and you make a crappy storyboard test, like they'll be like, well, you can fucking
just do
animate,
cool
so, I
actiony
mean,
stuff.
just-
You do keyframes, right?
yeah, and like they'll be like, oh, I want that, you know. So I guess that worked out. I was fortunate, but yeah. So like, Ian saw potential there. I just storyboarded for like a year and a half on Teen Titans Go. That was my first storyboard job. That was a really great
I
place.
feel like everybody's worked on
to
Teen
cut
Titans
my
Go.
teeth. Yeah. Oh, dude. It either has a high turnaround or just like it's a revolving door.
There's
People
so
come and
much of
go, and there's just so much. It's been around for like 10 years or so. Actually, I think it's been around for longer than 10 years now. I think it's been around for like 11 or 12, which is
Holy shit.
psychotic. So it's just such a beast.
Psychotic.
Oh man. So yeah, I had a good time on that show. And then so Ian reached out to me on Facebook Messenger and invited me to meet up with him for lunch. You know, we wanted to just talk about, he wanted to see if I could do boards for the show. And so when we started talking, I was just like, I'm sorry, man. Like, it was actually like, we had a whole fun, like, just hangout. And then at the end, when we left the restaurant, I had to tell him, I was just like, I don't know how to do board driven. He just whined and dined me. And I was just like, I can't do board driven. I don't know if I can do it. He's like, oh. I was just like, but, you know, I'm a good director. I have directing experience. I don't know if that helps. So I was like, you know, we do have a storyboard supervising position. And I was just like, sure, that sounds cool. What is that? And then went in for like, I basically just got it and then like just talked to Janet, the producer, and yeah, got in there. And then it was really funny because, you know, I was like about, how old was I? Like, just a little, what, it was like 32 or 33 years old when I got that. So I was getting shown around the office day one. And, you know, I get introduced to Toby, get introduced to Ian again. There's a couple other supervisors. I can't remember who was there at the time. Kimson didn't show up yet. But yeah, I was just like, oh, this is cool. And then there's like, and here's our board team. I was just like, baby? And then I looked at another person. I was like, baby. I was like, another baby? They're all like between like 19 almost or like 20 to like 25 or something. Like they were just young. And I was like, oh, I see. I just worked long enough, so now I'm a senior position.
That is how it feels, though. It is so crazy that you do bring that up as like, I feel like when you just kind of like are in college as a, you know, like animation student, you have all these big dreams of like having a show, being a director and all that, and you do kind of have to start like at the bottom. It's almost impossible to be a director right away. I don't think you should
be for the most part. I don't think it's a good thing. Even if someone's super talented, I think they need to be taken through it. I think for like, I mean, my personal opinion, I think anywhere between like, I really like 3 to 5 years of something like kind of titmouse level, rigorous, really cut your teeth and like learn your stuff. I think about 3 to 5 years. I think someone is usually good for a director, but I've also like seen people like just jump into directing pretty immediately, like almost like as their first job. Like Griff Kimmons was one of the guys that like it was like almost like right out of school. I think he just did like, what was the show? Freaknik. He worked on Freaknik, if anyone remembers that production. And I think he like was put in like an animation director position like almost like immediately. And then just like started directing like pretty soon after that. But he had the chops, he had the drive, and he was able to actually do it and do it really well. So I mean, it does happen sometimes. It does happen.
What do you think about people being put into director positions and just across the board? There's not like leadership coaching, like I don't even know if classes is the right word, but seminar, like I do think that it's strange that like it's a whole industry full of people that are like supervisors and directors, and I don't know if I know anybody that's had like a leadership like class really or
no one
or
has.
Anything like that.
Yeah, so there's this book called The Art of War by Sun Tzu that I strongly recommend for learning management. I'm not kidding. That's the only book on management I've ever read.
Oh my god. The Art of War is the only book on management.
Which is like the most Jeremy thing that you could say, which is
like treat
great.
my guys like combatants that are about to die or people that I could sacrifice on the pawn board.
No, you don't sacrifice your crew. That's the
true.
thing,
That's true.
is that he has really strong philosophy on like finding the right balance between like getting the respect from your crew, serving your crew, but then also like kind of keeping your distance, so like there's still like always like kind of like a strong bond and trust that like both parties like kind of give and take from each other, and you have to like manage your army. You got to keep your army, it's not like you're feeding your crew, but metaphorically you got to keep your crew fed. You got to make sure that they're like rested enough. So you have to be responsible with your delegation. And then you also like have to know like when to say like attack, and like, cause sometimes it's going to happen, but you are kind of waiting for that premium moment to like really lead like a big charge if it's like towards like a heavy deadline, but you don't want to be like, you don't want to run them ragged before that, because then suddenly they're going to hate you. They might not, I think they won't do as good a work, and like, even if you do get like great results, they're not going to want to work with you again. And, you're probably missing out on opportunities of growing your army of people that will actually want to work with you again in the future, So I do my best.
Incredible.
This
is
I do
incredible
love
advice. That's so Jeremy. That's so good. I love it.
I think it's great, like, to kind of have like a book like that you can kind of like come like that to and have like some kind of a overall idea and like way to structure your leadership, because that was something that I kind of ran into when I was storyboard supervisor on Craig of the Creek. I was like, all of a sudden I was like, holy shit, I don't know what I'm doing, and I feel like I was just like, I don't know where to start, and I felt like I just had no idea what I was supposed to do. And eventually I just went to Google and I was like, best books on management. And the number one that they recommend is How to Win Friends and Influence People. And that
makes sense. Yeah, that works too. Yeah.
That one's good too. It's not for a team. It's more for like kind of talking to other people. It's more business.
Yeah,
it's more when
it's like a pickup artist, but for friends.
A pickup artist, but for business.
It is very interesting though. I think it helped me break down a lot of stuff that I had like a really hard time understanding. Things like, for example, when they like there's a line in the book where they're like, there's always examples, and they're like, if somebody says something wrong or that you don't agree with, really think about whether or not it's worth it to contradict them on that opinion. And I was like, I never even thought of this in my life.
And what my guy would tell me is like, is that the hill you want to die on?
Yeah.
Right. How many of your men will you sacrifice by
right, or like how much of yourself will you sacrifice too? Because like, you know, you can only be so combative if like you're talking amongst allies.
Yeah,
exactly. That is so interesting.
I'm just thinking about every situation, how Jeremy's thinking about any of these deals in his head. Like, okay, we have to retreat for now. He goes into the executive meeting and he's like, retreat. You know, parlay.
When did you read that book?
A while ago. It was a long time ago. It was funny. It was recommended to me with the same mentality from a good friend of mine, Lenny, who is the creator of a really incredible video game called Eternal Castle. Go get it on PlayStation and Nintendo.
Hey.
So good. I love this game. It's brilliant. But yeah, he's a super interesting and brilliant guy. We went to school together, and we're still good friends, very good friends. And yeah, it was just funny. He just, I forgot how it got brought up, but it was his suggestion, and I picked up the book as it's like, oh, it's like 50 pages long because it's written by like a general. Doesn't want to talk. He just wants to tell you facts. So it's super easy read. And I was just like, this is brilliant. And I don't want to read any other book on management ever again.
Where did you go to school? You mentioned like your friend from college.
Yeah, that was at Loyola Marymount here in LA. That was when I transplanted from Merced, California to Los Angeles back in 2002. And I stayed here since then.
I think that's really cool that you went to a school that is like not as well known as like the typical like CalArts, Ringling, SVA, etc. What was it like for you finding your first job?
It's interesting because, like, you know, I mean, the school, like, to your point, like, what I liked about the school was, like, you know, I honestly liked getting the bachelor's degree, and I liked the liberal arts education that was, you know, supplemental to, like, just doing, like, animation stuff, you know, which, honestly, the only formal training I had at school was really just figure drawing, and then I think Jay Oliva's class, Jay Oliva's storyboard class was very rigorous and very trade school style. And so that was really helpful. That was like my junior year. And so like by the time I got to my senior year, I was showing a lot of, you know, I did some 3D stuff. I did a lot of dabbling. But, you know, for the 4 years that I was there, it's like, you know, I showed the most promise in 2D animation. And it was funny because this is the early 2000s, which this is like when like everyone thought that 2D was dead or dying. It was dying. It was absolutely dying. And it was absolutely getting replaced by 3D. And so, like, I had to make a big decision my senior year. I was just like, do I want to make a 3D film, which I'm probably going to suck at, if I'm being honest. You know, I'm not very good at this. Or do I just, like, do a kiss goodbye to this thing that I really love? This might be the last time I do it. So I just put all my eggs into that one basket, not thinking it was going to go anywhere. I never finished my thesis, but I ended up with a really great demo reel. And that's what got me my job. So getting a job at a college, it was my friend Mike Maloney, who was also a classmate of mine. And he just finished a job at a place called Halon. And Halon was like a previs studio. These are like the guys that do the 3D animations before they even like storyboard like a film. So it's like 3D storyboards for a film with like rudimentary shapes and this and that. But it wasn't for that. It was for this really bizarre little corner edition that was making webtoons for a political, thankfully left-leaning webtoon. So with Jim Hightower TV. And I was just like, oh, is that really how big oil works? I was like, that's crazy. So like, you know, that was like fun. And, you know, so that was a decent job. It was like in Santa Monica, so I was still on the west side of town at that time, and that's where I met my lifelong friend Matt Taylor, and we became good friends there. Yeah, we had a long career together. We still work together sometimes under his leadership. Yeah, so like, you know, so meeting Matt, then like, you know, okay, I'm gonna bypass my Fantasy Prone interactive days. So that was when I did awesome. Technically, my first storyboard job was on Spaceballs, the animated series. So I think anyone watching this, listening to this cast right now, go look up Spaceballs, the animated series.
That is so crazy. I didn't know that it existed.
Hurt yourselves. Go hurt yourself. Really, really fascinating experience. A bit too juicy for me to share on here, I have to be honest. Anyway, it's crazy production. It was in Beverly Hills. I remember the car payment. The parking bills were outrageous because you couldn't park anywhere. And
so
also they weren't like paying us because like the German like lender like says, wait, we won't pay you. Sorry for this accent. We won't pay you unless you finish. And like we didn't have a finished episode. And so like they're just like, we're really sorry guys, like we can't like pay you right now, but like, you know, just like hang out, but also work faster so like we can finish this.
Whoa.
And get paid. And so like when I quit that job, I was just like talking to one of the owners. He was leaving the office. I was just like, hey man, can I talk to you? He's like, no, not right now, I'm busy. It's just like, I'm gonna quit today. And he says, okay, hang on. I get him in the office. I'm 23 years old, by the way, which is an interesting age. You're kind of bold at that time and you're kind of stupid.
That is true.
It's a fun age. So it was a good time for me to behave this way. And so like they're just like, hey, like, so like my friend and I here, like, you know, like we actually don't want to really do animation after this. Like, you know, we want to get more into live action, but you know, we wanted to like, it was like a Willy Wonka situation. It was just like, you know, like we kind of were looking for like a boy to like, you know, give this like sinking ship to.
My God.
And I was just like, I need to learn how to work first. I don't know anything. I can't be in charge of anything. What are you thinking? I said, well, how much would it cost? Just anything. Like, how much would it cost to keep you on the show? I said, $5,000 a week. And they said, we can't afford that. And I said, I know. But, so then, lucky for me, I just hung out with Matt Taylor. He invited me. This is actually kind of legendary. I think this is like really cool animation history. But like, yeah, there was like a big ping pong rivalry happening between Shadow Machine back in the day with what's that guy's name? Seth was the original Robot Chicken guy with the red hair. He's
Green.
Funny. Yeah, Seth Green. I'm sorry, Seth Green.
You're good.
Yeah, so it was like the OG Shadow Machine versus Titmouse, and they had a big ping pong rivalry. So I was invited to a tournament. It was like an outdoor tournament, and it was like. So it was fun. I got to meet like Chris. I met my friend Sanggu Kwan there. He was like the lead character designer on Metalocalypse. I met like Akko and just like a handful of those guys. I really vibed with like that studio. Like I really liked, you know, that they were like very rock and roll at the time and kind of anarchistic, and like I liked that they had, you know, a background in like MTV animation, like from the Liquid Television days, you know, with Chris Pronowski and all those guys. And so I was just like, man, this would be a really cool place to work at. So, you know, at that time I had like my little DVD, you know, that was like with the print and everything. Like it was like really nice looking. You know, I spent hours, days like making this thing, you know, with the demo reel. You know, I was able to pass it off to Sanggu Kwan, or we just call him Goo. And I gave him my printed portfolio too, which is also super nice. You know, printed, binded, everything. That I had my game down. And so like, yeah, he showed it to the right people, and then I got a call like, hey, you going to, you know, from Shannon Pronowski. She's like, hey, you going to Comic-Con this weekend? I was like, yeah. I was like, why don't you come meet us at our little party? It was like at a bar. It was like really cool. Wow. And like, so that was kind of my first interview, and then we had a real interview like the week after, and yeah, that's how I got started there. But yeah, that was through Matt that helped me
going to little parties and events and stuff.
Yeah,
is so important.
It is.
It really is. I don't know. It's like, I don't know. I both love it and hate it just because it's like parties are fun, but it's also like very taxing sometimes.
It feels like work. I mean, now it feels like work. In the past, it was so exciting. I loved it. I like lived for it, man. And yeah, I mean, it sucks because like, oh, new page. I almost clicked clear frame, by the way.
No!
Stop it!
This button is
you love clicking near clear frame.
Jared just wants to start from a blank page every time. Just like
so
fresh.
Oh man, yeah, that's abusive management tactics. Looks beautiful. Start over. Do it better. Man.
Fifth time's the charm.
Fifth time. Try 50th.
So you charmed your way in.
I did charm my way in. I was charmed and I charmed my way in. It was mutual. I was at Titmouse for like 7 years or something like that. And worked on a bunch of great stuff there. It was really fun. It was a good time. It's very stressful and it was a good time. It was interesting just to be, when I reflect on it, I'm 40 now. And man, it's just like, just thinking about that young man that just wanted to fucking bleed so bad for his art and for like anyone willing to pay for it, And I mean, not anyone, but anyone that was cool enough to pay for it. I always like had to stick up my butt about like, like what jobs I take if it's in my control. But yeah, it's just crazy. Like that guy, that young man, like just worked so hard so I could be where I'm at now.
Mm-hmm.
He worked so hard, and man, I don't know what I'm a fan of Gen Z. I'm a fan of Gen Alpha. They're cute babies. But I don't know what the work ethic is there. But I mean, it's just like, I think just in youth in general, I don't want to generalize generations because that doesn't help anyone. But to generalize youth, though, I think that sometimes I've encountered a lot of like eagerness of people wanting, like starting out and just wanting it all immediately and just not being like open to this long, hard journey to mastering skills, and not just like the artistic skills, but your people skills and your literacy and social literacy and literal literacy. And
part of the cycle, though, wouldn't you say? Like, I feel like when I was in my early 20s, I wanted to be a director, like a showrunner. As like, what are you?
Yeah, and
like,
I think it's because you're looking for validation in a way.
Yeah,
which is fair. I understand that. But
and it's like you just don't give up, and then you end up building your
you
career.
Just end up being there anyways. Yeah,
I think that part of the cycle is like, in order to believe in yourself enough to do the scary thing that is making that jump to being in this career or like go into this scary thing. I think that you have to psychologically hype yourself up so much that you're like, I'm the next chosen one, I'm the protagonist, I can do anything. And so I think that like, you're delusional.
The ego is important. Yeah, the ego and the delusion and naivety, I think really goes a long way.
I agree. Yeah,
like, it carries you. It pushes you through the first wall. Absolutely.
Like I remember when I first came out here. I've told this story before, so I'm going to make it very brief. But I was sitting next to Damon Moran, Chase Conley, and LaShawn Thomas at my first job ever.
That's a lot of hot shots, man.
And I was sitting at that table, and I had just moved out, and I didn't know what job they wanted me to do. Basically, I had just come out to work on with Fox ADHD, and they were like, yeah, so what are you here for? And I was like, I mean, I'm hoping that maybe I can direct one of these shows. And they were like, I hope not. Like they were like, I hope not, because I was just like right out of school. I had never even worked on a show. There were these like powerhouse people, and that's the sort of delusional like you don't know the depth of knowledge that you don't know. You just you're just like, I can do it, and I have to believe in myself to do it. And I do think that we get into complicated territory when we talk about this stuff, because
it's true.
You know, like this is the height of sort of a culture spurred on us by our union, you know, where we're like workers' rights, like we should get paid a fair wage for everything. We should, and because of that, I think that there's like there's people that are going into the animation industry and they want extremely high pay on non-union projects and they don't have any experience, and they and to not work a lot of hours.
I'm with that. I think that's kind of more what I was trying to comment on. Yeah, I remember like having a and like, you know, there was a flawedness to my mentality at the time, where like I was talking to a group of it was at Titmouse, and like it was maybe halfway through my journey there, and I already went through like a pretty really heavy duty, big art there. Like, I mean, not that you should be doing this for places, but, you know, I was like sleeping there and all that stuff. You know, I was just like, I really gave myself to it. And I just thought that that's just what you needed to do, which I don't agree with now, but it's just what I thought. So, you know, when I heard the next generation of animators talking about like how they want to get paid this much and they want like this opportunity and that opportunity, and like I got mad at them like to their faces. I was just like, you guys haven't like done anything. I was like, why are you? And then they got mad at me for like being like, well, just because you got abused and abused yourself doesn't mean we have to. And then that made me more mad, but they were right. But also I was kind of right too. But like, you know, anyways, it's just, but it's kind of like one of
that's
those
a complicated
weird
conversation.
things. It is
It
complicated.
really is, because Sean and I have talked on the pod about, like, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but one of the reasons why we are in the position that we are now, Sean, me, and you, Jeremy, so all of us, we worked on these, like, terrible shows that nobody has ever seen, where we made very little money, and we did way more than our pay grade.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, and you know, and you do the all-nighters and you work at the weekends, and it's like, and it sucks because you don't want to tell anybody to do that. Unfortunately, I don't know of any other timeline for myself where
I can't imagine it. Yeah.
Right, yeah. I don't know how I would have gotten where I am now without doing that work, and it sucks because I don't want people to go through it. So it's just it's complicated.
It is complicated. Yeah. So guys, sorry. I don't know if you can just listen to this stuff and, you know, take it with a grain of salt. None of us look, it's just we're right now what we're talking about aren't rules. We're actually just giving you life wisdom, and just like you will probably go through a similar arc. And I don't know. I mean, everyone has their own journey though. But I guess if there is one thing I could say to kind of, I don't know, I hate to close it, but to close that, it's like I think it's just, be patient with yourself, and, you know, just be very open to the journey. Just know that like you are on the journey, and, you know, when you are traveling in that mountain, you can't see the mountain. You know, you can only see it when you're far from the mountain. You can see it in the distance. Then when you're in the mountain, you can't see it at all. But then like once you get to the top of it, you can see how far you got. You know, then you get to look down. But you won't know that journey until you get there. You know, what's funny is that when you get to the top of the mountain, some clouds move out of the way. And then it reveals that there's another peak that you got to keep climbing up. And it's okay. And that's forever.
Dude, you know what's so funny? Like, my dad was telling me about how, because he hikes a ton, and it's like when you climb up, especially when you have these kind of like peaks that are like there's like the first peak and the second peak and the third, because of perspective, you don't see how many peaks there are left behind that first peak that you have to like walk all the way up. And you walk up all the way up the first peak, and then you realize, oh, there's 3 more. And then you walk up the second, and then, oh, there's 4 more. It's exactly, it's so funny. It just, what you said kind of reminded me of that.
Totally.
Yeah, like, and so you were talking about going to parties. You were talking about, like, working with Titmouse. Like, they courted you a little bit, or, like, you went to San Diego Comic-Con, and then what was the first job you ended up getting there?
Oh, it was really fun. It was such a great first job, honestly. It was, there was this thing called Fuel TV, which was like, I guess like an extreme sports channel at that time. And they just needed a little bumper of this like cool little surfer dude that had like a very 90s Venice Beach design to him, or Mad Magazine kind of design. And so just like animated that little guy surfing, and it was super fun. Like I had a great time. I had a lot of free reign with that. Yeah, it was really great. And I was like surprised because I was just, you know, it was like it was fully animated, and, you know, I was actually it was a pretty luxurious job. It was it made no sense. Like I actually had like enough time to work on it. It was like maybe a 15-second spot or something. And, you know, it wasn't like a crazy team. It was like me and one effects animator, and then, you know, they had the compositor, and I had like an assistant to like help clean up and color the stuff. And Anthony Andrade did that, and so it was just super fun. And then the next job was like really hard, and then they were like, why isn't this done? And I was just like, because I was asked to animate 1.5 minutes of animation in I think less than 2 weeks.
Oh my god.
I don't have this time. And it's like, well, Allison Craig did it, and Allison Craig's like this incredible animator that is a master of economy, and you can't tell where the drawing begins and where the puppet ends, you know, and it's all beautifully integrated, and it's also beautifully. I don't know. She's just look, man. Like, you know, she's just a smarter person than me. So I was just like, look, I'm not as smart as Allison. Let me just be honest with you. I'm just not as smart. I just kind of just move forward.
The way I work is inefficient.
The way I work is inefficient, guys. The way I work. Yeah.
That's the way I work. That's my style.
Pain is my style. Just pain, and tribulations.
That is so crazy. Going from like, it's true though. Sometimes we go from a project to another where we're like the hot shot on one project, and then the next we're just like down in the dumps.
It's true. Yeah, it's just it kind of goes up and down, and they're both like fine. You know, I mean, the ones like where no one cares about you, and you know, hopefully you're not getting pushed too hard in terms of work. You know, that's the ideal situation for that. But you know, it's you hope that that's like the times to kind of just work on your own stuff and just kind of double down and not really be seen. You know, I don't think I've ever really had that, to be honest.
What do you feel like is the hardest thing you've ever worked on?
Good question.
Because I'm sure there's a balance in between like how happy you are when you're not happy on a project that makes it hard, but like then like schedule stuff also is another component.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's always a thing. I mean, geez, there's been so many. I've noticed that like I think the cooler the job, and usually the cooler the job and the more I want to do it, the less money and time there is.
True. Yeah,
that's just kind of a common thing. So you got to pick and choose. You got to pick and choose those battles for yourself. You know, and so one of them was I had like a pretty good job working on Cuphead. I was just there for like a brief stint. Working on as their storyboard supervisor. I was like their first board supervisor, and that was fun. We'll circle back around to that and the relevance of it, but you know, it was a good job. It was 2020, you know, and you know, it was just going, and I was more focused on, you know, the stuff outside of my work. I was trying to just work on like a pitch Bible and stuff like during that time, and was very focused on that. So I was just like, this is cool. But then, you know, I get a call from Antonio at Titmouse, and, you know, he's the animation director, Antonio Canobio, you know, he was a friend of mine too. And he's just like, you know, man, we got this project. It's with like a famous EDM musician, Martin Garrix, and like his friend Major. And yeah, they got this fun thing with like animated aliens. And I think you'd be really good for this. It's like we want to do like a music video series, and I was just like, damn, that I know it's like going to be extremely difficult. You know, I was like, okay, I have my comfort. It's going to pay exactly the same as this job, even though I'd be doing 8 to 10 times more work. But it was what I wanted. I wanted a show running experience, and so this was my one-time show running, and it was worth it. I mean. But also, it was lightning in a bottle, too. Like, at that time, like, it was crazy because I also had, like, a big anxiousness. I was like, man, I really want to sink my teeth into, like... I was just like, I was like about to do some self-destructive stuff to, like, just animate something big on my own again, which is really hard for me to do. But I was just like, I just wanted to, like, create something in my voice. And so this just came at the right time. And I also, like... was collecting like names of people I really wanted to work with. I had a document of that stuff. I was very obsessed with this idea of like being in a show running position. So I was like locked and loaded. I was just like ready to go, and also had the drive for it, you know. And so when I was presented it you know, I gave myself a night to think about it, and then it's like, yeah, okay, cool, yeah, I'll do it, and quit my job like within 2 weeks, and you know, jumped on it like immediately. I started on it even before. Like I don't even think I was getting paid. I just didn't care. I just wanted it so bad. And yeah, so like in less than a month, I had to like. I mean, they already had some concept art done. Chase Connolly did the initial designs for it like months prior. You know, just of the two main characters. And he did an exceptional job, and I loved like the fashion that he did, and I loved the lighting, and it was really cool. And then they also like Antonio designed like a spaceship, the spaceship that we see. I didn't touch that. It's just like that spaceship is brilliant. Yeah,
that is crazy. I didn't know Antonio designed it.
That's awesome.
That
it's
is
beautiful.
Cool.
It's iconic, man.
By the way, shout out to Chase Connolly, episode 155 of Creative Block. Go check it out.
Yo, I did check it out.
Oh, I just mean to our viewers that
I know.
we have
just,
some people
to give myself
listening.
brownie points. I did check it out.
Jeremy, thanks for just having a private conversation.
It is a really cool episode, though.
It is a cool episode, man. Yeah, I loved seeing his drawings. Yeah, so like Chase did these great drawings, and but when I was looking at them, I was like, he was forced into a bit of a box too with it. Like I saw some of his earlier designs for it, and they were a lot looser and more like crazy. And I was just like, it needs to have a little bit more of this again because they're aliens and they look kind of scary right now because they were a little bit too realistic. They just kind of look like humans with like alien heads almost, but really skinny necks. I was just like, if people are going to be on drugs, like dancing and having a good time seeing this, they got to look a little bit cuter and more friendly.
You don't want to
not like cuter as in like baby bullshit, but like like make them like handsome and like I want them to feel like maybe that might be an alien boyfriend. Like it's fun. Maybe I want to date my alien. And so like that was important. So I kind of changed up the designs. It was also like also if I'm gonna be like neck deep in this, I need to be able to draw these things. So I actually had to change the style to kind of fit my hand too. And Antonio was like really nervous about that, rightfully so, because he's there for the client, and I was learning a lot from him and how to approach that stuff. And he's just like, all right, like we're gonna put it to the test. Like you have to do like a couple style frames for the first 2 episodes, and we have to pitch it to the clients. This is their first time meeting you. And if they don't like your drawings, like you'll get fired. I was just like, okay. So, because he's just like, you changed the style. It's just like, I know, but this is just what I'll do. He's just like, all right, I like what we already had. So like, good luck. I said, okay. And so we did it.
Oh, that's tough though. That is like so scary.
It is scary, but
you're betting on yourself, right?
You were betting on yourself. And you know what though? Like I appreciated his mentality about it. It's correct. And I also appreciated that I got the opportunity to sink or swim, And, I was very fortunate. Like they really liked what I turned in, and they liked the personality that I added, and, the dimension and stuff, because they were doing things and it was story driven. So that's usually going to beat out kind of like just a one off design that you just can't. It takes so much imagination to look at flat character design and not know what it's going to do, but to see it in context, I think is what sold it. I have those drawings posted on my social media if you guys ever want to check those out for reference. They're usually black and white images, and but like so after I got the go ahead with that, then I had to board the first music video. And, that was like due, I think, in like 2 weeks or something. And, these were very involved. I wanted to like basically have it so people can just trace the board, at least for like the keys and breakdowns, and kind of go from there. And, that was like a really fun, hard venture. And thankfully didn't get too many notes for that. They were awesome to work with. Martine and Major were, as, friends and humans and clients. They were just wonderful. So we all had a good thing working together. But yeah, there was like one night where like one of my board artists, I want to say his name, but I also don't want to like throw him under the bus because he's incredible. He's a very close friend of mine. But yeah, I hired one of my very good friends to board with me on the second episode. And it was so funny because the characters were supposed to get to a certain city, a location. And he did everything all the way up until like they never made it to the city. He even like added in a portion where like the aliens like talk to like some tourist, and he was just like the music should be longer. The video, I was like, what are you doing? And I was just like, this is
They
due
can
tomorrow,
extend the
Yeah.
music.
I was just
That
like,
is
this is
so
due tomorrow.
funny.
I'm so mad at you because this is brilliant. It's genius. But you just had the camera just rotating around them like 5 times and never make it to the city. What's going on? And it was just like, I was just like, it's fine. I have to take a sword to this, which means like I had to like cut stuff, retime it, and I had to do an additional like minute and a half of footage in one night to get it in the next day.
Man.
And it was so high stress, because it was like a big party sequence and stuff too. And no shade to him. It was just funny. It made
Dude, you know what's so funny?
It was so fun, but it was successful. It worked.
Ever since you worked on Area 21 and you're kind of telling me a little bit about the backstage and like how what they specifically asked for in terms of like, we want to see people party. We want to see us on the stage. We want to see. Every time I watch some like big producer music video, I see these things too. It's like
because it's their life.
Like the core. It's like it's their and I think about what you said, like that it's their life and they want to see it on the screen, and like every big producer has these. It's like kind of part of almost like the mythology of like the EDM producer.
It is. I mean, it was crazy, and like at the end of it, like it's like I got this incredible team together. I got to work with all these like unbelievably great like directors and animators from all over the world, especially my friends in Argentina, like Nacho Malter and Damien and like Diego Polieri, and anyway, it was a lot. Rojo Fumagalli. Anyways, these guys are just like unbelievable. They're like at like that like Goblin's French level, of like animation, and like not too many people knew about them, but I really want to put them front and center. So we even like had like Diego and Rojo like they boarded 2 of their own episodes too, which was a really big thing to do, and they knocked it out of the park. And it was great to like get a relationship with all these guys. Mika, she was just like great. She was filled in all the hard subtle stuff that no one wanted to animate. And man, so like like that stuff was like I was like ran to the ground because I was like going over almost every single layout and key for at least the first 2 to 3 episodes. I boarded 2.5 of them myself, and that was happening on top of course animation production. And also, like, mind you, I had to like create the art style of the whole thing like within less than a month of development, on top of doing storyboards and everything else, and I mean everything came together. And
dude, music videos are hard.
They're
music
really
videos
hard. Really
animated music videos are something that I'm always hesitant about taking, because songs are long, unless you're doing like a simple looping kind of like visualizer music video. But there's just this impulse to be experimental and have crazy camera stuff. There's just like, I mean, you guys took it to a whole other level. Y'all didn't have to do this. like it's fucking crazy.
It was like so personal. I took it so personally and dragged everyone in there with me. But everyone in the crew was like down for it too, though. And like my mentality was like, if we want to have good animation, we have to have cool designs. So like we really pushed the design to like look cool, so people actually cared about what they were drawing. And people wanted to have like a real piece, and that's like kind of what I was presenting. And thankfully I had enough clout to my name to like where it actually was attracting other like incredible artists, to actually want to like work with me, which was like incredible. That was like honestly like, if we want to talk about validation, like that was like the most incredible validation to have. And it's like beyond that, I mean, validation sounds petty. There's a better word for it, but you know what I mean.
Self-actualization.
Sure, yeah. It was just
everybody
really cool
feels...
to finally just get that.
I think we all want to feel like not just validated, but like something I was just talking about recently with my partner. I was like, because I just came off a job where I just didn't really feel appreciated, and like the job that I'm on now might potentially to like the wide crowd out there sound less like glamorous, but just being appreciated on the job and like people like noticing the qualities of my work is just so
Yeah,
nice.
it's
You
a
know,
big deal, man.
it goes such a long way. I don't know.
Yeah, it's easy. Like, I feel like people, like younger people learning animation, they might not realize that everybody feels that imposter syndrome sometimes, where you're always looking at the people that are better than you or in the place that you want to be, and it's hard to appreciate where you are, or the fact that other people might like what you do. For instance, the idea that you could be into my work feels crazy.
Oh, dude, I love your work, man.
like and when that kind of thing happens, you're like, oh, what? And I mean, it feels good. It feels good to have somebody like your work.
Does.
I mean, especially someone who you know, who you respect or admire for doing a thing that maybe you don't feel as strong at or something.
Yeah, all that stuff's cool, man. Yeah, we're all kind of sensitive about this stuff. It's, you know, and it's reasonable to be sensitive. It's like, you know, it's just something, you know, we put a lot of time into this. It's something we like really care about. You know, and it's also a big way for us to express ourselves. Like, for me, it's kind of hard for me to. I don't think I'm like truly. I can call myself an artist until like I'm really like in like a heavy duty director seat. You know.
But it's funny that you would say that because you're also writing, you're also making beats. Like you are an artist. You touch like a lot of like different aspects of like creating. So yeah, that's really the imposter syndrome is so real.
So as an animator, without doing that stuff, you felt like you weren't fulfilling all of what you wanted to be able to do. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, like you know, I kind of see myself as like a composer, I think. Like, you know, same thing, even when I do, like, I don't make music too often, but I mean, Sean's like an insanely great composer and musician and producer. And, you know, but like when I do make music myself, I haven't done it in a couple of years now, but when I get back to it, I like to do it with these like little like synth devices, these little chord polkas that speak to each other, little modular synths. They're super fun, man.
Stuff's fun.
You know, it's like, I just was not satisfied like playing guitar and stuff very much because it's like, you know, I mean, I like that there's like a craft to it. You really have to like, it's like, do you want to invest my time doing this? Or like, I just want to go. And so like getting these little devices suddenly just gave me the power to like just make a full composition, you know, and I got to like go on like the intuitive drive of that, which is great. But all that's to say is that like, I think, I have more of a composer mentality when at my best I'm a composer.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
And and you want to put yourself, you want to maximize the amount of time where you're doing that thing that you feel like you're the best at. So that is that sort of what you mean about like there's some positions that you can be in where you don't feel like an artist. Is that fair?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like
I'm trying to dissect what you mean, because there's going to be people listening. They're like, "What do you mean you animated on Space Dandy and you didn't feel like an artist when you did that?" You know what I mean? Like,
I don't think I'm the best person to talk to about, or like, don't take my words, because like, it's like I don't pass this judgment on to other people. By the way, just so you know, this is my own personal journey in trying to identify, like, you know, if I'm an artist or like how I'm an artist. I see myself as a creative person, and I see myself as a person that is good at making things, and I guess maybe that's enough, but I don't really know what an artist is, and it's just like that over intellectualization of something, and maybe it can be simple. I don't really know. You know, like in college, like I talked to a person that was more of like a fine arts background, and they said, like, you're not really like an artist, you're more of like a draftsman. You know, it's just like, oh, I guess so.
Oh man, that's a statement that sticks. I can already tell that stuck in your craw for years.
How did you feel about somebody saying? Because I relate to the identity search that you're talking about. Like, what does it mean to be an artist? Like, what does it mean to be a composer? What does it mean to be doing the job that I do? Like, I think for me, like the soul searching just kind of came to finding a nice groove and being an entertainer
Yeah.
and really understanding what like being an entertainer means. Because I used to want to be an artist, and then I realized for me, I don't think being the like capital A artist is the right fit for me.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering.
I'm not saying that to. I mean, no, it's just like it's exactly what I'm kind of talking about. Like for myself. Yeah, that's it. And that's cool. You identified it. I think for me, it's like I think the closest I've gotten to figuring out what I am good at, it's composing. It's putting a big thing together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, there's this idea of like organizing it into a sequence of like elements that make something beautiful together. That
you're like a vibe conductor.
I'm a vibe conductor, a collage artist, I guess, and a vibe conductor. Yeah. So I like that. Vibe conductor is probably the best thing we can say. But it's kind of hard for me to. It's like it's like I'm an artist in just like the vague sense, but it's like but as you say, a capital A artist. Yeah, no, I don't think so.
For a long time, I felt alone in that I didn't feel as much like an artist as I feel like other people did. Because I also feel like I care more about entertaining people than about making some sort of artistic statement or about, frankly, about like even rendering or style, or like I care about telling a story and making people laugh and telling a joke more than like knowing how to paint the most beautiful background. There's always going to be people that are way better at that stuff than I am, so I don't worry about that stuff as much. But it also made me feel a little bit like different than other people I had met in the animation industry, I think.
Yeah. Wow, it's really nice to talk to you guys about this stuff.
We're getting existential on creative blocks today.
Yeah, man, we'll go deep.
But I think that's like I really like that we're talking about this, because I do feel that is part of every artist's journey.
Yeah.
Especially in animation, which is a craft, which is both like a very
it's a team sport.
It's a team sport. It's also art.
It's absolutely
it
art.
It can be high art, and it's also a very highly skilled craft. Mm-hmm. And it often is part of the entertainment sphere. So it is like these three things, and it's kind of difficult sometimes to find your footing.
It's really hard. Yeah, and so I guess like the only time I get to I feel like a good animator sometimes when I finish a nice shot of something. But I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, oh, that's cool. I can still animate. It's always how I feel. I don't care how long or how short it's been since I animated, but I'm always like, oh, that's cool. I can still do that. That's nice. It's really satisfying. It's very satisfying to animate something nice. And for me, that used to be the end all. I was just like, man, there is nothing better than animation. And I still feel that way to some degree. But I think where I'm kind of like at now more recently is just like, man, like what's really important to me is just like a complete idea. And a complete idea is very hard to do, like from start to finish, both you guys are incredible with that stuff. You really pushed yourselves to get really good at the complete idea. I'm just that's kind of just like where a more recent venture and mentality has been. I'm almost like in some way kind of, I don't want to say taking a break from art, but not having as much like emphasis on it. It's like I want to, I'm just learning how to like, I'm like, it's, there's a better segue to this, but, it's like I've been like writing a book, and, it's been awesome just learning this whole other skill set. And it's not the same as screenwriting either. It's a really different thing. And I like the very cerebral nature of writing and reading. And I think, of course now I'm up my own ass about it because, I'm interested in it. So now I'm like, oh, like reading's like really cool because there's something that's this is kind of the first like simulation, if you like think about it, you get to like get transported. And so it's like a really great way to like, it's one of the great ways to like transport people, into your mind. And but to translate your mind onto the page is a very challenging thing. And for someone that is a hard time with communication and sometimes emoting, it's been a great and challenging journey. And you know what? Actually, even more so than that, the hardest part is logic. I'm a reasonable person, but I have flawed logic, and so like that's something I'm always battling with when threading stuff throughout like a story, you know. But it's been great though.
I wonder how many people feel this, because I also feel like sometimes I'm trying to tell a story and I'll like tell my partner about it, and she'll be like, that doesn't make any sense. No one would ever do those things or assume those things after one another. And then I'm like, am I operating under just a fundamentally different set of rules, and I'm going to write stuff that just no one can understand?
I do.
I mean,
think...
it's possible, but like, I mean, yeah, me and you are kind of weird guys. Like, we're a little different.
I think there is something really real there, because I do feel like pitching, especially when you pitch to execs, who I would say most typically, I would say, or would probably be neurotypical.
Yes.
And I feel like if you're an artist, there's a higher likelihood that you're neurodivergent in any kind of way. And for me, I've definitely ran into that wall a lot of times where like things just kind of make sense. It's like, well, SpongeBob exists. Why don't we also have another world with like cartoons and little animals having tea? And a lot of people will just be like, well, they're animals. Animals don't have tea. Or like, you know, or and then like the another version of that is like, well, the character does A, and then now he does Z, and a lot of people, like for you in your mind, all of the steps make so much sense and they're so easy. Yeah. And it's like, and you don't want to waste any time explaining it because it seems like so
right. Yeah, and then people are like, but why? Like how?
Yeah.
Why would you do that? What? I don't relate to that. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. No, that is something that I've definitely noticed, and I've definitely been a little bit more aware of, especially because I've noticed sometimes myself being in conversations with people who would explain things where I was in my head, I was like, well, of course, all of this makes sense. Why are we wasting time talking about all of these different steps? And then later I understood, like, oh, it's because it's not obvious to everybody.
No, that was the other thing. And you know, part of that is having empathy too. And you know, it's like, I know all of us here are empathetic people, but empathy just takes on so many different shapes and colors. And you know, when it comes to sharing your ideas with others, it does require a great deal of empathy. So a great deal of empathy for your audience, or a great deal of empathy for your reader. And you know, if your idea isn't communicating or gripping the person, then you know, it's like, then you did do something wrong, you know, and that's fine. But yeah, it just sucks because then you do gotta keep working on it until it does make sense to people, and it is a very challenging venture, but it's okay.
But I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of writers have a small group of people that they trust with proofreading or getting a second opinion, because I bet that happens to so there's so many drafts that we've never seen from famous writers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. I do feel like, but I do agree though with the initial sentiment, which is just kind of like, am I just crazy and none of the things I say make any sense?
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
dude, I remember. Yeah, dude, I had a time like that a little while ago where I was like on a deadline. I was underpaid every single day. I was writing a full new outline and sending it to them.
God.
They were like, this isn't working. We might have to cancel the project. I just remember just breaking down, crying for like 45 minutes uncontrollably. Like everyone that had ever told me like that I wasn't a right, like I had there was this old boss that I used to have, who the way that she would introduce me to people is that she would say, oh, this is Sean. He moved out to California to be a writer, and then we fired him, and he pretty much swept floors until he begged his way back into the company, and now he works on our shorts. And multiple times that same person had talked to people and been and like there was another time where I had a friend that had a job interview with her, and he was like, yeah, so like you might know Sean, like I worked on his Adult Swim pilot as a writer with him. And she was like, oh well, he doesn't count his writing experience, he's not a writer. And it's just like all of those moments from throughout like 10 years trying to do this stuff, like just added up in that moment. And I was like, what if I just don't got it? You know? and I just broke down. Yeah, dude.
It's so true, because especially as artists, and we might be able to kind of hop back on the book from all this conversations. Like as artists, we spend so much time drawing, so much time refining the craft of drawing and making pictures, but
which is another form of communication, you know.
It is,
and that's probably why we chose to draw for communication, because we probably had a hard time communicating anyways with words. So it makes sense for us to have get that validation from mom, dad, or whoever, you know.
And also to just like really
people get me, you know, like okay.
And I do think there is a because I've also felt that, where it's like when somebody's saying like, oh, you're not a writer, you're just an artist, or you're like, well, you don't know how to write, or like kind of hitting that button of like, you can't really communicate your ideas, actually. It can be very painful.
It is painful. Yeah, it's very frustrating and very painful. It kind of, you know what, it kind of brings you back to just being a baby that can't talk. You know, and babies start crying because they can't, because no one understands them, and they're just like, I want that thing. On a side note, like, you know, it's kind of cool in like modern parenting. I don't have a kid, but you know, my wife, you know, her sister has two beautiful children, and they're wonderful to be kind of, you know, for me to be an uncle of, you know. And you know, so I get to like observe them, and they're super interesting and really smart and cool. But something that kids these days get is sign language. So I get to see babies like speak and say, I want more, or like
That's
stop,
funny.
or like what, and they can, because you can do it with Coco the gorilla, and you can do it with the child, you know.
That is so crazy.
It's so cool, but you know, that makes them not cry as much.
That is so
It gives them autonomy.
Anyways, that is cool.
I did want to talk a little bit. We kind of talked a little bit about leadership in the book, but I do want to talk about the differences in your experience between your different leadership jobs, because you were show running on Area 21. How was that different from being a storyboard supervisor on OK K.O. to being, would you say, so you're an animation director on X-Men?
Yeah, I'm like the animation supervisor on X-Men. So what's different from that versus an animation director, at least in Western style productions, is that means that, like, you know, I've helped like establish the actual animation style of it, and you know, my job is to reinforce that style, you know, and I'm actually in a lot of different departments, you know. It's kind of similar. I mean, it's not as crazy, like, you know, Jake Castorina is doing the actual supervising, directing. You know, he's the one. That would be like the Area 21 style position, you know, like where he's like really calling all the shots in the end, and like all the rooms. But like, you know, I do get to like, and I don't envy his job on the show, to be clear. It's such a crazy job. But yeah, like, you know, it was cool. Like, you know, my friend Nazir Pasha and I, like, we set up this how to animate X-Men 97, and made a really cool book to send to the vendor studios. Shout out to Mir, shout out to Tiger, and shout out to I can't say yet, unfortunately.
Man, I'd love to see that book. So I know that's that's like about major behind the scenes stuff. So cool to see that book.
Let me say this, and this is not incriminating evidence because I would never do this, but I want to say, like, I do hope to see it get leaked. Like, I would love it if, like, in 10 years from now, it just gets like leaked, and it's just like this like awesome like archived thing, because I'm very proud of the book. It's cool, but just for the legal record, just know if it ever gets leaked, it wasn't
Was
me.
it you?
I can actually promise you. I promise. So,
It would be. I could see it becoming some kind of like a pillar kind of document that all the like students in the schools are sharing. And they're like, "Can you believe this?"
I want that so bad. It's going to be a long time before
like
that
those
happens, or it might not ever happen, honestly. Because I'm not going to leak it.
And once again, if you're listening to this,
it's like the Brad Bird "How to Storyboard the Simpsons Way" kind of PDFs
exactly,
that are always floating all over.
Oh man, I want to be part of that so bad. That'd be so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, because it makes you part of like animation history in a weird way, where people can learn from the things that. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, but I mean, I like this position. I have a pretty good, substantial, like influence on like how the show kind of looks in the end. Like we do like DI process, where we like look at the final filtering, and like I'll play with like the timing and edit. I work with my friend Marty, who's like the incredible retakes lead animator, and that team. And, I have my small team of like rough animators, which is Nas and Daisy Schofield. And those guys are wonderful to work with. And, like we get to do a lot of like hands-on stuff. And, we get to do like rough animations over stuff that we get back. And sometimes just like write notes. And then it's just like crazy. It's kind of wild. Like it's not all drawing and animating, but... Yeah. That's the funnest part, but but just kind of there's just so many different ways of like relaying that information, and the last thing you want to do is actually draw and animate in a way, because it does cost that studio time and money and stuff, but when it's worth it, you muscle up and just do that, and it's fine.
What's your kind of oh no, go ahead, Sean. Actually,
no, I just wanted to ask if you have any part of the hiring process and how you look for folks and what criteria you kind of use for either balancing your team or finding the appropriate people for your team.
I mean, for this show, it was interesting. Like, I actually requested, like, when I first started working there, the first assignment I was given was like, hey, like, can you just draw some like animation tests, like of like an action thing, and like a dialogue thing, like samples, which was super fun. I loved doing that. You got to use Storm for those. Hopefully, get to post those soon.
Dude,
that's that'd be great. I would love to see that and share that with people. And then I was just like, yo, man, like I'm just kind of looking at the schedule and thinking about what we're asking for. It's just like, would it be like possible to get another guy on this crew? And they're just like, oh, who would you have in mind? I was just like, oh, it'd be cool if we got like Nas. Like, we just worked together, and we've been friends for a while, and he's doing this really incredible Dragon Ball Z thing that's gonna blow everyone away. So you probably want him. And it was like, yeah, sure. I was like, what?
Is he the one that did that? It did that fan animation where they
Legend.
Okay, Jesus. Oh my goodness.
So
okay.
I love working with Nas. He's another. You should have him on your show. Honestly, he's such a cool guy and super talented. And yeah, it'd be great to talk to about like indie animation, and at the level he does it, it's just crazy.
I would love that.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
So I would have like drawn her leg probably coming out here, and I think that would have been cooler, but I didn't want to mess with your comp. But okay.
I'm so sorry.
Oh no, but that's
I
what
was trying to draw your guys with their clothes getting blown
off. Oh, that is them. That's so funny. I just sorry, I didn't get a chance to like examine it. Oh, this is so funny. Yeah, they look ugly.
This is so funny.
You just kept talking about how you were trying to make them hotter, and and I was like, yeah, just cars exploding in the background.
That's so funny.
That's what I wanted to ask you about, and thankfully, our patron Dandyist asks, ages ago you pitched Outrun Express for Cartoon Network.
Good segue.
What was the process like? What did you learn from the experience? Do you see yourself trying to pitch another original show in the future?
Wow. Thank you for the extremely thoughtful question. That was Dandyist?
Dandyist, yeah.
Thank you, Dandyist. Damn. That's a really... Thanks, man. That's a really nice question. So it was interesting. That was a really interesting era of Cartoon Network. I think a lot of us in the industry were like really motivated and really like in the rat race to try to get something picked up. It just felt like things were getting picked up. Networks kind of had an identity, and like it was pretty easy to get meetings with people. And like I don't want to get too much into the background of Analog On, but that's kind of what got me the meeting for this other thing. I couldn't pitch that for other reasons, but yeah, so I just created Outrun Express, and that was great. I do like that project. I even actually made an adult version of it too. That was called Streets of Dominion, and yeah, they're both like kind of like food or drug centric, and fighting against your the powers that be that want to like convolute your mind and like control you and all that stuff. So it was like fun. And Outrun Express was fun too because it was like about like the future of farming, because I know that like farming is going to be a big deal for the next generation. So I wanted to make farming really cool. So that was like a fun aspect of it. Yeah, I mean, just like almost everyone that's been through the ringer, like the experience is that like the executive gets really excited. They green light it for development, which is very exciting. You sign a horrible contract. And like you don't get paid like pretty much like anything for it, and the contract says that when your project fails and it doesn't go anywhere, that they own everything that they paid for up to that point. And it's like if you want to pitch it somewhere else, the other studio has to pay, let's say, Cartoon Network back in full to get those rights. And pretty much most of the time, like 99% of the time, no one's going to do that. So the thing that you spent like however many years on making just is gone, and there's not really much you can do with it unless like you do something like clever like Sean and kind of like find different ways of like reprogramming it. And for some reason, whenever I tried doing that, like people were like, no, this like is too similar. And I'm just like, they look fucking different. They have different names. It's like, what the fuck? Like, and it's just because I said like, yeah, it's kind of based on this. It's like, no. So like everyone's just like a fucking tool. So like basically like my advice to you is just like, if you do rebrand your stuff, one, no one gives a shit. No one actually cares that you made anything. So just like get your shit out there, for the most part. Usually it's going to be all right. Just change the names and change the look of it. No one's going to fucking know. No one cares. No one's paying attention to you. And, that'd be like maybe one of my regrets was like being a bit too honest, like when I was pitching it as the adult version of it.
No, okay.
Like people just didn't want to touch it, which was like crazy. People were like interested in it, but then they didn't want to touch it after Outrun got canned, and I made a completely different version of it.
It's hard to explain to someone else or someone new all of the things that have changed and all of the things that have been pivoted. So like when they look at it, they're just assuming all the different things that could possibly be the same and that could get them sued or something like that.
Yeah, that's all they care about. Yeah, I mean, which I understand that, but honestly, it's just like, this was like, it was silly, man. Anyways.
No, I mean, this stuff is hard. It's hard and you're putting your whole heart into it, and then you have to like mourn your project when it doesn't work out. And again, it's not really even that like anyone said no. It's that, I mean, it's hard that someone said no, that's fine. But the harder part is that you can't pretty much like do anything with it. It's in cartoon prison. It is essentially worthless because no one will ever see what you've done unless like, you can just post it online. That's fine, I guess. Like, no, again, like no one really cares. Like, unless honestly, it's like a pilot or something. But if it's just like a pitch Bible or something that's and like your animatic, it's no one cares. No one's paying attention. I feel like there's two kinds of people that do really well in pitching. There's the one person who has that treasure idea that is like the $1 billion idea, and they do it and they strike gold, and for some reason they pitch it at the right time, and and that's really rare. And then the other type of person is someone who is infinite idea flexibility person who is just going to keep pitching infinite shows and doesn't get too attached to any of them. Right. And you just kind of like, it's like a spaghetti tosser. Like you're just like tossing stuff at the wall. And
true.
Yeah. That is 100% it. If you were not either one of those,
Yeah.
It's never gonna happen, and it's fine. It's so hard though. It's like, but you have to kind of try though to see if you are that. You don't know.
Yeah.
So you gotta gamble your time. But for me, I've just kind of done gambling my time with that, and I did have like a few, like about 2 or 3 years of like about two or 3 years of like really playing like the pitch circuit and stuff, and setting up meetings and creating new projects, and at a certain point, especially like after seeing like what's this weird transition that's happening in Hollywood and stuff, and like I don't even understand like what the fate of our industry is. I basically just picked up my ball and went home. And so like now I'm like, all right, it's more worth it to me to have a complete thing that I can enjoy and share with people at a smaller level than to gamble my life and my time to get something put in prison to never be seen or enjoyed by anyone, including myself. It just kind of just stops, and that's so, it's not just painful, it's just like, it's bullshit. And it's like, I understand that companies need rights to I guess like protect their investments and stuff. Like, I don't want to get too into that, but it does kill a lot of art. There's a lot of art that gets killed because of, and it's like funny to be the guy that's like, I think there's also like a certain degree of like copyright law that I think also works against us, and it's kind of a more delicate conversation. I'm not equipped for that, but that is an aspect. And yeah, man, it's just I just got tired of it. And so I was just like, you know what? I'd rather just spend like 6 years of my life like learning how to write a book and write that book and do some drawings for it. And, at least that story will be told. For better or for worse, It doesn't matter, but it'll be done.
Yeah. There's something really interesting I find talking to especially artists that have been doing this for a while, is there's a part of a lot of people's lives where their dreams shift, or or maybe their dreams mature, or maybe their dreams broaden, so that like you have these like, when you first graduate and you come out here and you're like, I'm gonna invent my own show, and like you have these like stars in your eyes, and I know what happened to me is I did that, and everyone from my college was like, oh my God, Sean, right out of school you're gonna have a show. And then as the years were going on, no show, and then I'm a disappointment and whatever. But and what I started realizing is like my dream is hurting me because it's so specific. And the only way to live up to my expectations is to fulfill this very narrowed. I mean, at the time, it was to have a show on cable, and that dream it almost doesn't even make sense anymore. So it's like the dreams shift, and if you can be flexible with your goals and your dreams, you can, I think, avoid some personal like kind of devastations. If like for what you're doing, it sounds like you're like, well, now my goal is to make something that I have full control over, whatever that is, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a cartoon. It could be something else, and that's fine.
Thank you. Yeah, that's perfect, man. That's 100% it. And yeah, I think it's gonna take everyone just like kind of like at their own pace, like to get there. Some people get there really fast. Some people, I think, that are like a bit more like ambitious with their stuff, or have like weirdly high expectations of themselves, unreasonably high expectations of themselves will take longer, and that's okay too. But because you do get better and stronger for it. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, it's like you do get better at storytelling and all this other stuff. When you do take yourself through the development ringer, It brings to light certain things. It's like they're not always right, but there are notes that are relevant.
The funny thing is more than likely the opportunity for a show that you want to make is going to come after you've kind of let that dream go a little bit because
And
you're
you might not
focused
even
on
want
like
it.
writing, like you're becoming a better writer. You'll have new tools to equip. You're taking a different run at it, and it's funny how things work sometimes. So
It's true.
I was just like realizing this for myself recently. I feel like the moment that I was kind of giving up on pitching, I was just like, I think I'm okay.
Yeah.
Like, I can just work on my comic and I'll be fine. Then, like, suddenly I have more opportunities, which is a kind of weird thing. When you stop wanting something, it kind of like weirdly kind of shows up, which is
and more
they call it the
agency.
laws of attraction. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
When you
Play
put
hard
your
to get.
dream
Yeah.
when you put your dream entirely in someone else's hands, that fucking sucks. If you have agency over your own dream and your goals, then you can control it. But if your whole goal is to seek the approval of some unknown person in the world to like deem you viable as a whatever the protagonist in your story,
right?
Like,
yeah,
you know.
I think that is so true. It's like, yeah. It's like you're putting all of the validation into external validation, and you're not giving yourself like internal validation, and then you're miserable because of that.
Yeah.
Make goals that you can control. I think that's
beautiful
advice.
Very elegant. Yeah, that is really, I think that's really the key to this stuff. Yeah, give yourself control. Like, you're going to be a lot happier, and it does open up opportunities, because if you are producing and publishing your own work, then like you're just kind of you are literally not magically in the bullshit way, but you are actually very much so manifesting it. Like V's been doing that. V's been making this comic for like 2 years straight, and like very consistently, and like a bunch of other works, and it just if like people see that, she gets an audience, and like of course that makes sense. I think that's the better route to take. Always. I didn't get like opportunities to start developing stuff until I made, an animated sizzle trailer,
Yeah.
A bunch of stuff started happening.
You started making it.
I made it. At that time, I was just like, I'm tired that no one sees me as a director. And so I was just like, I'll just fucking make something to direct.
Oh, yeah.
That's so awesome.
Motivational, guys.
Yeah.
Good advice today.
Our Twitter listener at KC Pants asks, what's your inspiration when you're making character designs? Like, for example, your robot girl.
Robot girl, I actually just drew her in a sketchbook like I think a month ago. I've been meaning to ink her. I just thought she would look kind of cool. Like, so where she came from was from like there's this cool like fashion page of like these ladies dressed in like kind of a similar shiny robot outfit, and I was just like, this is cool, and I just gave it a little bit more edge, threw some spikes on it, because like right now I'm like in like my thorn period, so like I'm just like everything gotta have thorns, and it's thorns or nothing right now, and it's spiky, and like that's just like really cool and sexy to me right now, and so I don't know, and like I'm also like now in a different phase of my pursuits where I'm kind of trying to push myself more as an illustrator. So I'm actually trying to not draw animation friendly things for myself, to not limit myself to that, and to see like if maybe could we animate something close to this, if push came to shove, and how exciting that might look. And I think that's more possible to do now than ever, just especially again like just seeing all the incredible stuff that just came out of Annecy the last couple weeks. Just everything's just so detailed and crazy now. I'm just like, let's go fucking nuts. Let's go fucking crazy. So I'm just trying not to hold myself back from that. For me, I think tone is extremely important. I think atmosphere, even in a character design, is important. That storytelling aspect of it, that curiosity, finding like a glimpse into like what could be another world that you could build around that creature or character. That's exciting for me.
That is so cool. I like that you think about like mood when you do your characters. You just don't think about it just as a character.
Yeah.
Our patron Tuko Paul asks, how did you get into Sakuga and how did you learn the technique?
There is a story. So, I mean, everyone liked it. I didn't understand it, but I was like, I liked it. But so, like, I was trying to do. It was crazy. There was just like a little period of blip of time back in 2010 where I just gave myself a series of tests. Like, I just got really curious about it. I didn't really have much resources for it. I was just kind of getting more exposed to it, working with Juno Lee and Junpei Takayama at Titmouse. And so, they introduced me to Gurren Lagann, and like, we were trying to like figure that stuff out. And so I was like, man, I'm trying to crack this. I'm just like, it looks like they do everything completely different than Western animation. Like, it's very the antithesis of Richard Williams, like Disney straightforward, like, this goes there and then this grabs that. It's just a lot of, it's all the same principles, but they're applied in like upside down and side to side, just different. It's just a completely different angle. And so like I did a couple pencil tests for myself, and located probably on my old zooavenue.blogspot blog from like way back when. Maybe they're on there, maybe not. I don't know where
somebody
they are.
track
Maybe
it
they're
down.
on my Tumblr. I think it's obviously on my Tumblr page.
We need a Jeremy archivist to track it down.
That's true. Those guys exist. not of me specifically, but there's some like pretty niche animation archivists that are incredible. But yeah, I did these tests, and then again, it was my friend Jamie Bickers and that's a guy you should have on this show. He has such an incredible story to tell in terms of like how he like worked in Japan for like 8 years at like Madhouse, and this is in the early 2000s, so like Koike and like Koji Morimoto and stuff. He was like with all the best guys like at like peak Madhouse, peak like Studio 4C. And he just came to the States to work at Titmouse on Motor City because he was friends with Chris P. And, he was going through like his own personal life transition. And so we became friends. And yeah, I showed him my test, and it was super interesting because he was like, instead of, this is good, but instead of going this way, try going that way. And I was just like, it like actually hurt my head because that was the most elegant way to explain something without like saying anything, but it was absolutely the answer. And so after that, I actually did start trying to apply that, where I'm just like, there is a straightforward path to this, but like, how do I break that path? So what I started to find was like very timing, like trying to like having a character like rush towards camera on like ones or twos, and then like hit like a crazy like eye pose or something with like 5 frames, and suddenly that 5 frames like makes it look like it goes even faster, even though it stilts the image, but it like actually is very jarring, so it gets exciting. And so I think with like the Sakuga stuff, it's really cool because it's more sleight of hand, it's more magic trickery with that stuff. So it's like it's like a lot of wipes and like popping, and contrast is like really big.
I was always curious how you would get notes on that stuff, or whether it was sort of like either you got it or you don't.
I never got notes on it. I actually never got notes on my Sakuga because I never did real Sakuga for Japanese production anyways. Okay. And like the closest thing I did was maybe like some animation for Studio La Cachette when they did a League of Legends thing. And those guys already boarded the shit out of this animatic, and they already gave us like really incredible, like I think he gave me like 3 or 4, like probably like 4 really incredible keys to work off of, And so it's just like, all right, like this is just kind of like an animation style. I'm going to see what flavor I can add to it. And honestly, I didn't really push it as far as I wish I did at that time, but but I never really got notes on my Sakuga stuff, not in a big way.
That's good, because I don't even understand how someone might give notes on some of that stuff, because it a lot of it seems so it's like vibes. it's like people have different styles, and like who's to say like having them go towards the camera versus the other way or whatever. Like I don't know. It seems like a much harder thing to give notes on than like, okay, the character is in a 3/4 pose, and we want them to do a cool backflip and do a sword strike, but we're doing it in the same shot, and we just have to make sure this animation looks really flowy. Like, it's different than that.
It's not flowy.
Exactly.
That's the hard part, is that it feels flowy, but it's like the least flowy thing. Like, I have one example that I gotta go. Thank you guys for hanging out this long. But
hey, dude.
Yeah, when I was on the Area 21 project, we hired this really incredible animator, Luis de la Rosa, who I think he's originally from Mexico, but he was living in Canada at the time. And when he came from a more cartoon background, like he was animating on like the recent like Animaniacs and stuff, but like his stuff looked like really fucking polished. It was like really sharp. And I was just, and when we reached out to him, he was just like, I'll do this job, but only if you give me a Sakuga shot. And I was just like, great, we need a guy to do it. Sure, you're hired. Like, yeah, absolutely. And I was just like, I will train you to do this because I don't want to do the shot. I'm exhausted, but I will train you to do it. I know you can do it. And I told him it's going to be hard. We spent over like a week and a half. I was just like, fucking clear this guy's schedule. We are going to nail this shot. And it was for a video called Followers, where like the alien like flies in like the tunnel, and he's like on the surfboard triangle thing, and he like flies past camera. He does this really crazy thing, and like it was so funny. I told him, I said, instead of going this way, try going that way. Here's also like this like silly like YouTube lecture I did like years ago. Like try watching that, and he's like, okay, and and like seriously, like he was doing nothing wrong. It was just like it just wasn't slapping the way, because it's really hard to fight the logic to just be like, it goes this way, then it goes that way. But I was just like, no. So I did like all these scribbly things for him, and then he's just like, like where the camera, like, he like does something, it like pops, and it was just all fucked up. But then it came together in like a crazy way. It wasn't exactly what we ended up with, but like I think somewhere towards the end of him getting to the shot, it was crazy. It was just one morning I was just like, all right, let's see what he did, because I was just like ready to like kind of take the shot for him, and like no offense, I was just it's just like, all right, we gotta get it done. This is it's too bad, but yeah. But then it's crazy. Then like we checked out his shot, and like he just knocked it out of the park. It was completed. It was fully drawn. He 100% got it, and now he can just do that stuff. You kind of have to just crack a code in your head. It just clicked. But yeah, I think pushing him a bit, and him being really determined, to like crack it. And that was my thing too. It was just like I was so determined to crack it, and it's like I'm still determined to crack it.
You kind of answered this question on Instagram from Tashman Dimps, who asked, how do you get your action animation to look so good? Do you have any philosophies or techniques that you've developed over the course of your career?
I mean, it's pretty much everything I said, but if there's anything I could push for, it'd be like, look for contrast between your key poses and do the unexpected.
Our patron Kitty Fries asks, in terms of action animation, who did you personally study? And live action wise.
Oh, like, live action wise, that's cool. Yeah, I got
both animation and live action wise.
Okay, in animation, it was Emaishi's Dead Leaves was my Bible. Hey. I literally have his storyboard book that I found in Japan when I went on a little mission there, and got that in like this weird little shop. I was like, I wanted to get the Ganga book, but then they had the storyboard book, which actually was even more valuable, because that actually affected the way I storyboarded too. And I knew that film front and back, so it was just really awesome to read along and like understand like what was happening. So I absorbed a lot of Imaishi for that stuff. Now I'm looking more towards like, and I love it's always the most exciting stuff, but like now I'm kind of looking for more spikes and more atmosphere. So now I'm looking more towards like Kawajiri and stuff like that is kind of like where my head's at. And what else? For live action, I got 3 guys. Like it's James Cameron, Paul Verhoeven, and John Carpenter. I think are my main guys.
All amazing.
Yeah,
that's
I love
cool.
Those guys.
Who I really like for choreography, because that's the other like fight choreography. I really like listening to Jackie Chan talk about fight choreography and how he chooses his shots to set it up. Really cool, really fun, humorous, so much personality in them,
Mm-hmm. The Hong Kong cinema and Jackie Chan especially are really great to look at. I do actually look at a lot of that stuff, but there's still all over the place. Like, I guess like Cynthia Rothrock movies are great to check out too for her choreography, and it also has like that really great like, it's like I don't know, I don't really look at anything like new. I don't, it's like I think there's a lot of great new stuff, but it's like it's so like close, everything's so up close that I just don't think it really gets that chance to breathe, and I don't think you always get to feel that impact that you do with the way that was shot in like the 80s and 90s.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. I think there's also been like a little bit, I don't know if you have any strong feelings about this, but like I feel like there's been a little bit of like too much Sakuga recently, where it's
I know I looked at it's it's been oversaturated, and I think that's why I've kind of fallen a bit out of love with it, at least in a more recent era. Like, I still just love seeing exciting animation, but just kind of the super big Sakuga stuff. It just doesn't get me the same way that it used to. I don't want to get too into that because I love what those guys are doing too, but it just doesn't like really resonate with me as much.
Well, if it's all the time, then it's not special as much,
because that's what Sakuga was supposed to be, was the special shot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have our titular question. The podcast is named for a certain theme of question. Do you get creative block, and what do you do when you get it?
Take a break.
Nice.
Take a step back. Do everything but the thing that you want to do creatively.
That's a good
one. Kind of the only way. Enjoy yourself. Do something.
That's a simple solution.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are all complex with the way that they answer that question, but I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just step away from it. It'll be hard to, but just step away from it, and just give your brain a break, because it'll kind of put itself together. It'll give you the answer later.
Yeah, we have one last quick question from a listener. What would be your Thorn Sona's name if you had a Thorn Sona? Just kidding. That's just a question I made up.
I know.
I still want an answer.
That's very funny. I guess he'd have to be called Horny Thorny. Like, I don't know. I mean, like,
Horny Thorny. You have to be.
But it's because because of all the spikes.
So funny.
It's all the spikes. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't know anything but horns and thorns.
I do love that there is a big cartoony side to your personality. Like, that is such a cartoony name. That is so funny.
Look at that legend. I'm so honored, man. This is so funny. Man, you guys are bangers. Man, these are bangers. Like, I love this page. I love all the pages. We got really beautiful pages in this. I'm really excited.
I feel like those were like we were like on fire today. Like you like, it's funny because you started the episode being like, oh, I don't know if I can draw a lot. Like, you like drew these amazing, like, intricate.
Well, I had to do one thing at a time. Yeah. If you notice, like, you guys drew a bazillion like incredible drawings. I was just like, here's one. I can do one
in between words that I'm saying. I'll try. I hope no one notices. I'm just quiet for a second while I try to finish this.
No, it's true, man. No, I can't. I really can't draw and talk at the same time. It requires too much concentration. It's usually like a private activity for me, but it's fun to try.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. That is the end of this creative blog. Jeremy, thanks for being our guest and sharing your story.
Oh man, thank you guys for having me. I love hanging out with you guys, and I really enjoyed our conversation. It was really nice. It was a really beautiful conversation. Thanks for digging deep with me, man. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Dude, it's always a fun excuse to figure out a way to trap us in a place and get us to draw together, because I feel like we're busy, and it's nice to see you. I also want to give a shout out to our listeners. Follow us on social media at CRTV Block, where we ask for drawing prompts and questions to ask our guests. Huge thanks to our editor Clemens for editing the podcast, Marco for helping us produce the show, and Abuka for creating the short clips we've been putting out.
If you love our show, you can support us on Patreon. Becoming a patron gets you early access to interviews and access to our Discord community. You can also support us by interacting with our content. Leave a comment, please. What is your Thornsona's name? That's what you're going to comment on this
Please.
video. Give us a like or share, reblog, all that good stuff. Subscribe. Please subscribe.
Please.
Click the link in the description of this episode to follow Jeremy on all his socials if you don't already, and to check out our Patreon. I've been your host, V.
And I was Sean. Keep being creative, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.